Elite Facts presents
Another 8 Neighbors from Hell. 8. Charles Hart, the Great Wall Neighbor. When Dennis Hawes from Fleetwood in England built a sun terrace on the roof of his home, his neighbor Charles Hart took great offense, claiming that Hawes had built the terrace in order to spy on him. In response, Hart erected a 16-foot wall to prevent Hawes from looking into his garden. Well, it is said that good fences equal good neighbors, so what does putting up a mammoth wall say?
7.
The man who burned down his neighbor's house. We all know how annoying it can be when your neighbor doesn't keep their garden under control. But would you go so far as to burn down their house over it? Well, that's exactly what Philip Roger Bennett did to his neighbor, Marty Corbett. Apparently, Philip told Marty that he wasn't happy about the length of Marty's grass. The pair argued over the complaint, and Philip ended up slapping Marty across the face. But Marty didn't retaliate. Instead, he went into his house to avoid the whole situation and began watching the TV with his little girl, Kylie. At this point, Philip kicked in his door and yelled for Marty to get outside. Marty immediately called the police, and while he was on the phone explaining the situation to them, Philip came in with 2 gas containers, which he proceeded to pour all around Marty's house. Then he lit the gas. Marty managed to get his daughter outside to safety, but he had to watch as all of his possessions, including the entire house, went up in smoke.
6.
Mountains of garbage. Imagine living next door to a garbage dump. Well, that's what these poor people from Andover, Massachusetts had to deal with. Their neighbor absolutely refuses to throw anything away, ever, even actual garbage. His hoarding is so bad that when his neighbors put out their garbage cans for collection, he goes out and takes their garbage and puts it in his garden, alongside all of his own crap. The people who live near him have complained about the mess, and the man has been told by health officials that he must clean up. Time will tell if he complies.
5.
Wi-Fi hacking neighbor gets 18 years in jail. This angry neighbor tried to ruin the lives of the couple who moved into the house next door to his and landed himself in jail. When Bethany Kostelnick and her attorney husband Matt bought a house in a sleepy Minnesota suburb in 2009, they didn't expect to have a neighbor from hell, but that's exactly what Barry Ardolph turned out to be. It all started on the Kostelnicks' very first day in their new home. Their 4-year-old son had gone off investigating and found himself in Barry Ardolph's garden. Ardolph wasn't too bothered and took the child back home. But when he dropped the little boy off, he gave the child a kiss on the lips, which naturally alarmed the child's parents and prompted them to tell the police what had happened. Ardolph was furious and began a campaign of hate against the Kostelnicks. He started by hacking into the Kostelnicks' Wi-Fi and creating a MySpace account in Matt's name. Ardolph then posted child pornography onto the page. He also used Matt's work email account to send sexually harassing messages to women who Matt worked with. And he didn't stop there. He also emailed politicians, including the then Vice President Joe Biden, threatening them, all in Matt's name. Ardolph didn't get away with his antics, though. The Secret Service got a warrant to search his house, and while there, they found evidence that Ardolph had used the internet to stalk his neighbors and attempt to damage their careers and personal life. Ardolph was sentenced to 18 years in jail. 4. Identity theft. Hey, neighbor, can I borrow your ID and credit card so I can go buy a cup of sugar? Now, say your neighbor buys you something expensive. You would probably just see it as a nice gift, say thank you, and move on. But how would you feel if you then saw the gift on your credit card statement at the end of the month? You'd probably be pretty damn peeved if you saw that. Well, that's exactly what happened to Bill and Melissa Callahan, who thought it was awfully generous of Anthony James David to take them to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. But it turns out when they looked at their credit card statement, they had financed the entire day. By the time the Callahans figured out that David had stolen their identity, he had already racked up almost $3,000 worth of charges. David was subsequently arrested on 10 counts of theft of personal identification information, fraudulent use of a credit card, grand theft, and dealing in stolen property. And this wasn't the first time David was arrested for fraud. Previous charges brought against him included not only identity theft and using a stolen credit card, but also pretending to be a doctor and practicing medicine without a license.
3,
A sight for sore eyes. Next up, we have a neighbor who will do whatever it takes to spite her council and neighbors. When the owner of a $23 million home in one of London's most expensive areas lost a planning dispute, she protested by painting ugly red stripes across her residence. Needless to say, this was an eyesore, and you can pretty much imagine what her neighbors thought about having to live near such a monstrosity. The owner, property developer Zipporah Lyle Mainwaring, wanted to demolish her home and change it into a 5-story building with a mega basement that would house an underground swimming pool and movie theater. Neighbors protested the conversion, believing the construction would lead to structural problems in properties surrounding the home. While their complaints were well-founded, there was little that could be done to force her to change the garish decor since she did not violate any laws.
2,
The Hulksters Petting Zoo. Now let me tell you something, brother. If you think I'm gonna shut down my petting zoo, you got another thing coming, cause Hulkamania is gonna run wild on you. So as it turns out, at one point in his life, mega reality star and former professional wrestler Hulk Hogan was a nightmare to live next door to. Now, that's not to say he wasn't a polite neighbor, not at all. Animal lover that he is, Hulk Hogan had a veritable zoo at his Bel Air, Florida home. And in 2005, the head of his homeowners association complained to town officials about the, quote, dogs, rabbits, ferrets, chickens, and roosters that were causing, quote, loud and frequent noise and an unsanitary stench at the Hogan residence.
1,
Jake Paul. While we're on the subject of celebrities, let's talk about rising YouTube star and former Disney child star Jake Paul. And before we go any further, we're not going to delve into the polarizing argument surrounding Jake Paul, except to say that we don't think his actions towards his neighbors were at all necessary. Now, if you've been keeping up with the news recently, then you've already heard about some of the incidents of him disturbing the peace in his neighborhood. How is he disturbing the peace? Well, for starters, he gave out his home address to all of his fans. And right now, Jake Paul has around 10 million subscribers, so you can imagine how many people have been showing up at his house on a daily basis. He also rides up and down the street on his motorcycle constantly, performing loud stunts outside for his fans. And he even set the pool in his backyard on fire. When news outlets caught on to this, they decided to go and interview his neighbors, who described the neighborhood as a war zone, thanks to the noise and the constant pranks being pulled on them. One neighbor almost died from smoke inhalation thanks to that backyard pool fire he started. And what did Jake Paul say about all of this when interviewed by the news outlets? Quote, dab on the haters. That is just downright disgraceful. And that's our list. Did we leave any neighbors out that you know about? Let us know in the comments below, and please remember to subscribe and tap the bell button to be notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.